Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama-shloke Bhaktir-bhavati naistiki Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnana-anjana-shalakaya Chakshurun-militam yena Tasmai Shri-gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa-kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna-prishtaya bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti-vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 28, Kapila's instructions on devotional service. So we are in the final section of this particular chapter, where from text 39 to 44, we are discussing the thought process of yogi. So we come to text 42. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ईक्षेत अनन्य भावेन भूतेषु इव ततात्मताम्.
A yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. This is realization of the Supreme Soul. Purport. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, not only does the Supreme Soul enter each and every universe, but he enters even the atoms. The Supreme Soul is present everywhere in the dormant stage. And when one can see the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere, one is liberated from material designations. The word Sarva Bhuteshu is to be understood as follows. There are four different divisions of species: living entities which sprout from the earth, living entities born of fermentation or germination, living entities which come from eggs, and living entities which come from the embryo. These four divisions of living entities are expanded in 8.4 million species of life. A person who is freed from material designations can see the same quality of spirit present everywhere or in every manifested living entity. Less intelligent men think that plants and grass grow out of the earth automatically. But one who is actually intelligent and has realized the self can see that this growth is not automatic. The cause is the soul, and the forms come out in material bodies under different conditions. By fermentation in the laboratory, many germs are born, but this is due to the presence of the soul. The material scientists think that eggs are lifeless, but that is not a fact. From Vedic scriptures, we can understand that living entities in different forms are generated under different conditions. Birds evolve from eggs, and beasts and human beings are born from the embryo. The perfect vision of the yogi or devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Now the next is Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani. A yogi will see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists are the different energies of the Supreme Lord. And here it is said, in this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. So this is, very beautiful similar verse to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini. Shuni chaiva shvapake cha panditaha samadarshana. Srila Prabhupada describes that in the Brahma Samhita, it is being explained that the Supreme Lord enters everywhere and in every atom and every universe. Andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. And because the Lord is entered everywhere, the Supreme Soul is present everywhere in the dormant stage. And when one sees the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere, actually one is in a liberated condition. One is able to see the Super Soul. This is not some artificial imposition, but first we have to see everything as energy of the Supreme. And then slowly, by connecting everything as energy of the Supreme, one will be able to see that the Supreme Soul everywhere in the form of energy. Again, Bhagavad Gita recommends this. Yomam paschati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami nacha sema pranashyati. Neither I am lost to him, neither he is lost to me. Right. Further, Srila Prabhupada says there are sarva bhuteshu, but this bhuta means the living entity. This sarva bhuta can be categorized into 4 parts. Which are these 4 parts? The living entities which are taking birth from the earth, which are taking birth from fermentation or the germination, which are coming out of the eggs or which are coming out of the embryos. So these are the 4 types of living entities, and they occupy different bodies, counting 84 lakh species, 8.4 million. And one who is freed from the material designations can see the same quality of spirit present everywhere or in even manifested living entity. So what this is the meaning of that verse, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. So Vidya Vinaya Sampanne is not the person, is Pandita, is a devotee. He will see Vidya Vinaya Sampanna Brahmana and Shvapakecha, even a dog eater. Of course, he will behave with them differently, but how he will see? He will see that actually it is just the same thing. How? Because the living entities are equally divine and pure. One living entity is covered by sattva guna, purer form of the nature. Another living entity is covered by very dark tamoguna. And that's why he will not take these distinctions very seriously, in the sense that he will not excessively hate somebody or something like that, because he knows both living entities are potentially equally divine, but because of their wrong choices or something, they have acquired these material coverings of, one is acquired material covering of sattva-guna, one is acquired material covering of uh, tamo-guna. And therefore their characteristics are different, and therefore their behavioral patterns are different, their habits are different, and all these are different because these living entities are acquiring that. So, but again, it is the display of same thing. There is a spiritual energy soul and there is a material covering. Of course, those who are covered, Prabhupada writes this, that you cannot just say, oh tiger, you are soul, I am soul, tiger will eat you. So one has to behave differently, but there has to be vision there has to be vision of equanimity in one's understanding that there is not much different. So this equanimity is always very stressed for a yogi, and Prabhupada says yogi means also devotee. Because of the soul, Prabhupada writes, and the forms are coming from the material body. So just it is the display of 2 energies, the living entity, which is the spiritual energy, and then the 3 modes, which is material energy, Daivihesha, Gunamayi. And then Prabhupada comes to the important topic. Prabhupada says sometimes people think that eggs are lifeless and the eggs are vegetarian. And in India, there was such a vicious propaganda which was committed to make people literally a non-vegetarian in the form of Sunday hoya Monday, Roj khao ande, kind of blatant lies. I mean, blatant lie. So eggs, and I know so many communities, so many, even they say we are vegetarian, we are vegetarian Prabhuji. Only thing we take the eggs and omelette and other thing that we take, because eggs are anyway vegetarian, right? Where is life in the egg? No. So, either there is going to be a life or that life is terminated, right? So eggs are not allowed. And Prabhupada very clearly writes about this. The perfect vision of a yogi or a devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. Text 43. Svayonishu yatha jyotir ekam nana pratiyate yoninam gunavaishamyat tathatma prakrutau sthitah. Translation?
Translation: as fire is exhibited in different forms of wood, so, under different conditions of the modes of material nature, the pure spirit soul manifests itself in different bodies. Purport: it is to be understood that the body is designated. Prakriti is an interaction by the three modes of material nature, and according to these modes, someone has a small body and someone has a very large body. For example, the fire in a big piece of wood appears very big, and in a stick, the fire appears small. Actually, the quality of fire is the same everywhere, but the manifestation of material nature is such that according to the fuel, the fire appears bigger and smaller. Similarly, the soul in the universal body, although of the same quality, is different from the soul in the smaller body. The small particles of soul are just like sparks of the larger soul. The greatest soul is the super soul, but the super soul is quantitatively different from the small soul. The super soul is described in the Vedic literature as a supplier of all necessities of the smaller soul, Nityo Nityanam. One who understands this distinction between the super soul and the individual soul is above lamentation and is in a peaceful position. When the smaller soul thinks himself quantitatively as big as the larger soul, he is under the spell of Maya, for that is not his constitutional position. No one can become the greater soul simply by mental speculation. The smallness or greatness of different soul is described in the Varaha Purana as Swamsa Vibhinamsa. The Swamsa soul is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Vibhinamsa souls or small particles are eternally small particles as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. The small living entities are eternally part and parcel, and therefore it is not possible for them to be quantitatively as great as the super soul. Hare Krishna.
Now, next Kapila Muni explains, as fire is exhibited in different forms of wood, so under different conditions of material modes of nature, the same pure spirit soul manifests itself in different bodies. So sometimes you may see fire, although the fire is coming from the same wood, but some wood there will be a smoky fire, some wood somewhere there will be a very bright fire, somewhere there will be small fire, somewhere there will be very big fire. But my fire is coming from the wood only, but still the manifestation of fire is different. So similarly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the quality of the manifestation will depend on which kind of guna that living entity is choosing. Right. And that choice happens, it's a day-to-day choice. And that's how, and then further manifestations will happen. And that's why Bhagavad Gita very elaborately describes about food in the three modes of material nature, Sattvagun, Rajogun, Tamogun, determination in three modes, Nishchaya, and then Dana in three modes. And especially chapter 17, chapter 18, part of chapter 15, even 16, Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to understanding the three modes of material nature. Because according to three modes, we are going to situate, and according to our situation, situate in the modes, and according to our situation in the modes, we are going to have the next life. And that also Bhagavatam explains. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa. Next point Srila Prabhupada explains here is that the living entity may be Anu or Vibhu. But there is Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha, but under any condition, the Vibhinnamsha, which is the Anu living entity, will never become Vibhu. Right? So there is the individual soul, and then there is a minute soul, small particle of the fire, and then there is the greatest of the great soul, that is super soul. And he is maintaining, just like the previous verse it describes, that the existence of smoke and spark depends on fire. Similarly, the existence of living entity depends on the existence of the soul, depends on super soul. And one should not equate both of them. This is very important. And they always remain separated and maintain their different existence. Nityo nityanam, chetanas chetananam, eko bahunam, yo vidadati kama. It is not that all are one. No. There is eko, bahunam. There are many multiples. millions of living, billions of living entities, and there is one Supreme Master, right? Yo vidadati kama. And this is also confirmed in Varaha Puran, which is describing about Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha. Swamsha means the Vishnu incarnations of the Lord. They are considered non-different than the Lord. Vibhinnamsha means the living entities which are separated parts and parcels of the Lord. They are also non-different qualitatively, but existentially they are different, and quantitatively they are different. Prabhupada says, when the small soul, minute soul, Anu, thinks himself as Vibhu, super soul, he is under the last snare of Maya, because eternally he is supposed to be a living entity, Jiva. Mama ivamsho Jiva loke, Jiva bhuta sanatana. Sanatana means for that which has no beginning and no end. This is called as Sanatana. Text 44. Tasmadimam swam prakritim daivi satsadatmikam durvibhavyam parabhavya swarupena vatisthate. Translation.
Thus, the yogi can be in the self-realized position after conquering the insurmountable spell of Maya, who presents herself as both the cause and effect of this material manifestation, and is therefore very difficult to understand. Purport: it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that the spell of Maya, which covers the knowledge of the living entity, is insurmountable. However, one who surrenders unto Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can conquer this seemingly insurmountable spell of Maya. Here also it is stated that the Devi Prakriti, or the external energy of the Supreme Lord, is Durvibhaya, is very difficult to understand and very difficult to conquer. One must, however, conquer this insurmountable spell of Maya, and this is possible by the grace of the Lord. When God reveals himself to the surrendered soul, it is also stated here, Svarupena Vatisthane. Svarupa means that one has to know that he is not the Supreme Soul, but rather part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. That is self-realization. To think falsely that one is the Supreme Soul and one is all-pervading is not Svarupa. That is not self-realization of his actual position. The real position is that one is part and parcel. It is recommended here that one remains in that position of actual self-realization. In Bhagavad Gita, this understanding is defined as Brahman realization. After Brahman realization, one can engage in the activities of Brahman. As long as one is not self-realized, he engages in activities based on false identification with the body. When one is situated in the self, in his real self, then the activities of Brahman realizations begin. The Mayavadi philosophers say that after Brahman realization, all activities stop, but that is not actually so. If the soul is so active in its abnormal condition, existing under the covering of matter, how can one deny its activities when free? An example may be cited here. If a man is in a diseased condition, very active, how can one imagine that when he is free from the disease, he will be inactive? Naturally, the conclusion is that when one is free from all diseases, his activities are pure. It may be said that the activities of Brahman realization are different from those of conditional life, but that does not stop activity. This is indicated in Bhagavad Gita 18.54. After one realizes oneself to be Brahman, devotional service begins. Mad bhaktim labhate param. After Brahman realization, one can engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, devotional service of the Lord is activity in Brahman realization. But for those who engage in devotional service, there is no spell of Maya, and their situation is all perfect. The duty of the living entity as part and parcel of the whole is to render devotional service to the whole. That is the ultimate perfection of life. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 28th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Lord Kapila's Instructions on the Execution of Devotional Service. Hare Krishna.
And this is how now Kapila Muni, he concludes this chapter. Tasmat imam swam prakritim daivim. Thus the yogi can be self-realized position after conquering durvibhavyam, the insurmountable spell of Maya, who presents as cause and the effect, and therefore it is very difficult to understand. And here the important word is swarupena avatishthate. He will be positioned in his position of self-realized soul. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Maya is very insurmountable, difficult to cross over. And this is explained in Bhagavad Gita also. Daivi hesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya. Very difficult to cross over. Here the word used is durvibhavya. Very difficult to conquer, very difficult to understand. But one very easy way is anybody who surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, Maya becomes very easy to cross over. Etam tarantite. One can, simply by surrendering, one can very easily cross over this very difficult spell of Maya too, which is difficult to understand, difficult to cross. Duratyaya durvibhavya. And for this, to conquer this insurmountable spell of Maya, one has to surrender to the Lord. And only by the grace of the Supreme Lord, this is possible. Otherwise, it is not possible. The example is given, Prabhupada gives example. It's like, you have you come and go to your friend's house. And friend's house you go, and he has one very ferocious dog. Which dog you can say? There is one pit bull dog, This pit bull is banned in many countries also. And this pit bull dog, and he just attacks on you. Now, this dog has become responsible for so many deaths. Okay, of course, not all dogs are same. We are taking this example and Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada citing this example. And what is the easy way to control the dog? Easy way to control the dog is just call the master. And the master will say, he will just make some gestures and the dog will be very pacified. Similarly, a living entity on its own accord cannot control Maya or cannot cross over Maya. But when living entity surrenders to the Mayadhish, who is controller of Maya, Maya can be very easily controlled. And this is possible by, Prabhupada writes, by the grace of the Supreme Lord. And next is Swarupena Avatishthate. Now this word Swarupa comes in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, right? We may think that Swarupa word comes only in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where living entity Swarupa is being explained. No, Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they are so very deeply connected. So here in Bhagavatam it says Swarupena Avatishthate. But what is the Swarupa? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he is giving Upadesh to Sanatana Goswami, he very clearly describes what is Swarupa. Jivera Swarupa hai, Krishnera Nityadas. That is the Swarupa of the living entity. And what is the Mukti? Mukti means when the living entity is engaged in the Swarupa activity continuously, that is called as Mukti. Mukti Rhitvanyatha Rupam Swarupena Vyavasthiti. What is Swarupa? So Mukti means established in Swarupa. And Swarupa means Jivera Swarupa hai Krishnera Nityadas. And Nitya means Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Sometimes the Mayavadi philosophers, they say, no. Once you get Mukti, then you just become Shunya. There is no activity after Mukti. And people are afraid of this kind of explanation. People feel that, if I just become spark of light, and if I have no activity, better to continue with existing activities. Because I want to act. Prabhupada says a diseased man is active in a diseased condition. Then how foolish it will be to consider that when he becomes all healthy and everything is working very well, he will sit inactive. So the living entity, when the living entity is wrapped up by the material nature, just like, sometimes children play this sack race, right? They put the child in the sack. That means goni mein dal ke बांध दिया usko, and his both legs are tied, only he can breathe. And within that sack race also, people are so active. Now, the living entity in the body, material body, is exactly like that sack race. He is put in a body where there are so many organs, there is mucus, blood, this, that. There are three modes of material nature. There is mind on the top of it. Then there is ego. With all this, the living entity is so active. Then how foolish it will be to consider that when the living entity is free from material conditioning, he will become very quiet. He will be shunya. No, he will be very, very active. And those activities are purified activities. And those activities are called as devotional service. Brahma Bhuta Prasannat. Then that is the devotional service. So Prabhupada quotes here 18.54, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param, that there he begins devotional service. And Vaisi, on the contrary, one who begins devotional service has begun his activity on Brahman realization. Although he may be currently under the three modes of material nature, but he's surely going to come out very fast. Ashu Janayatti Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam, because he has directly started performing the activity on the Brahman realization. And this is the power of devotional service. Prabhupada says, for those who engage in such devotional service, there is no spell of Maya, and their situation is all perfect. Because they have now perfected. Why all perfect? Because they are engaged in the service of all perfect. And why there is no spell of Maya? Because they have fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the only duty of the living entity is to render devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. And that is the ultimate perfection of one's life. And this is how we conclude Kapila's instructions on devotional service, chapter 28. Tomorrow we'll begin with chapter 29. Okay. So this canto has 33 chapters, and this is after the 10th canto, this is the biggest canto, by the way. Yeah, so is there any question, comment? We have a couple of minutes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I had two questions. So all the devotees who are performing devotional service, so are they all Brahman realized? Can we say that?
Yeah, so are
And
they all Brahman realized? On the theoretical level, yes. Theoretical level, yes, means one has the clear understanding that they are not the body, they are the spirit soul. What are the activities of the body? What the body is made up of? What are the activities of the spirit soul? What the spirit soul is made up of? So, that any devotee who has studied Bhagavad Gita very well, they are on the platform of understanding where they are. But there is a gulf of difference between understanding and action, knowing and doing. Yesterday in a discussion we were discussing, just like you tie a rope between two 45-story building, and you tie a rope between these two buildings on the 45th floor. Tightrope, you know the rope walking, right?
yes,
You know
Prabhuji.
that people take a stick in the hand and they walk. And when the rope is given, and I get perfect 4 hours training on how to put the first step, how to balance when the gush of the wind comes from one side, how I should balance the that stick in my hand, and how I should simply keep looking forward towards my goal. I should not look down, and everything. All theory is told to me, perfect theory. Will I be able to walk? No. Why? Because there is a difference between understanding it and doing it very well. So, as a devotee, we begin to understand what is the Brahman realization. But to do it very well takes a lifetime of practice. Right? So, understanding doesn't mean we can equally do it. So, then there needs practice, there needs, specific practice, and then one can develop one particular skill. So, devotional service is also skill for the soul. He has forgotten. Actually, he is born and he's like a very innate skill for him, but he has forgotten how to perform devotional service. So one has to train oneself through this practice, right?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, how can one come to a Brahman platform, understanding that, I mean, everybody in India knows that we are not body, we are soul, but how can one come to that understanding? Is it by studying Bhagavad Gita or how?
Studying Bhagavad Gita, studying Vedic literature is one aspect of coming to that level. Another is practicing Bhagavad Gita in our day-to-day life. And our entire devotional service is designed in such a way that progressively, again the word progressively, slowly, steadily, we will come to that understanding. Right? It is not that it is not so superficial. Like one day we went to one college and gave one seminar, life after death. We have some typical one-time seminars. And next day, the one student's mother, she came complaining to the teacher and said that, what you have taught him in the class, my child is saying that he's not the body and he's not going to study. Okay. So that is a very, very overly simplistic understanding that he is not the body. Yes, one is not the body, but to realize that and to act on the platform of the soul, and especially following the principles of Bhagavad Gita, principles of Nishkama Karma Yoga, of, even if one is not body, one has to one still has the psychophysical nature. One has to engage that psychophysical nature in the service of the Lord and for the contribution to the society. There has to be a specific fulfillment after performing one psychophysical activity. There has to be, the significant contribution according to our own capacity. So all this cannot be nullified simply saying that I am not the body, I am the soul. Right? So one has to go through the entire experience of one's life while being enlightened with Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And then one will realize, and all the while following yama niyama, all the while checking one's activities, that the Shad-Ripus are there. Prak Sharira Vimokshana, it is said that, lust, anger, greed, they are so powerful that till the time of one's death, one has to be following these things. One cannot consider in between, I am liberated now. I can do whatever I can act whatever way I can. No. One has to follow the Vaishnava etiquettes very, very carefully at every stage of one's life. And this lifetime of preparation, and then one is, then the Lord will take care. Right?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one last question. Prabhuji, those who
Yeah,
are
please.
already practicing devotional service, how can they get rid of three modes of material nature?
By practicing devotional service, what happens is that slowly and steadily, these are the very, very highly key words, huh? Always. We cannot have a plan that, I become a devotee in January. By February, Tamoguna will go. By March, Rajoguna will go. By April, I will be fully in Satvaguna. So one person actually, he came to the preacher and he said that, Prabhuji, for last almost 1 year, I am a devotee. Neither Lord has come in my dream or given some darshan. And, our process is working or not working. So, uh, this is a lifetime commitment. And fortunately, we are in devotional service, which is the quickest way to advance in, in any yoga process. Other yoga process like Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, they take lifetime after lifetime. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Right? So within this lifetime, one has to practice devotional service, and by the practice of devotional service, slowly the modes of material nature will go away. Hataujasam. Hataujasam means the effect of Maya. We have read that very beautiful verse in the 25th chapter, right? That effect of Maya will slowly start diminishing on a devotee. Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye chetayatairanabidham stitam satve prasidati. One will be slowly established in the mode of goodness. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti-yoga. So those verses, Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. And then Vidyate Hridaya Grantis, Chindyate Sarva Samshayaha, Shriyante Chasya Karmani, Drishta Eva Atmanishware. So this is the very clear process of Bhagavad Bhakti. It begins with chanting the holy names and what we do every day in the morning, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And then by Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, the dirt in the heart will be accumulated, bracket, slowly, steadily in the due course of time. This is very important. While doing perfectly well in all one's roles in one's life. Like Arjuna, we can see Arjuna was just perfect everywhere, whatever he did. As a husband, he was a perfect husband to Draupadi, to Subhadra. As a father, he was a perfect father. As a disciple, he was a perfect disciple. As a friend, he was a perfect friend. So we may not be like Arjuna, but we have. So what the point is, we cannot have the escapist mentality that, because I have become and this, we have done this. Personally, I have done this, and I have suffered for this, right? So when I was a student, I used to think that, yeah, now I have become a devotee. I know preaching, this, that. I could memorize some shlokas, go around, and I used to think, yeah, studies is who bothers studies. By Krishna's mercy, somehow I was a good student that within studying for 4 days, I could sufficiently crack exams and get distinction and other things. But it is not the way. This is how one should not do, right? That by becoming devotee, you don't become. We used to think, oh, we have become transcendental now. Studies. Similarly, you neglect health, neglect studies, sleep. Literally 2-3 hours a day, preach till night, 1 o'clock, get up for 4 o'clock in the morning, Mangalarti. So this is not correct way of performing devotional service. Also, of course, there is some youthful exuberance is there, but this is not a sustainable devotional service. So one has to be very contributive in one's every role in one's life. Like, for example, even within ISKCON, one can say this. And please, anybody don't take any offense because we are just a discussion on the discussion platform. Even within ISKCON, one can see that those who are having, there are devotees who have, the three children. Like we have our Arvind Prabhu, we have our Priti Govind Prabhu. And the lady in the house, the Matajis, they are fully occupied with 3 children. Okay. There is no question of going to, some garland seva or doing this seva, that seva, preaching. And they are just fully occupied with taking care of the child only. Vis-a-vis, you may see somebody whose children are either grown up or they have no children or they have decided not to have children for seva. Now, this is a very, very questionable topic, very, very personal. But if you want the general understanding of this, it is that like once a couple approached Maharaj, Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and they said that, Maharaj, please bless us not to have a child so that we can dedicate our life in the mission of the Lord. And Maharaj said, I cannot bless you like that, but I will bless you to have multiple children so that, grihastha means having child. Putrena vina griham shunyam. Okay. So now somebody who has apparently no, quote unquote, in quotes I'm saying sarcastically, no material responsibility, they can do a lot of spiritual activity. But realization doesn't come like that. Okay. So somebody is a grihastha, one should try very well to have children. In spite of that, one doesn't have a child, then that is plan of the Lord. One will take that gracefully. One will go through that pain of not having children. And then one will focus on preaching more, considering, oh, all children are my children. Maybe Krishna has another plan for me. And then one goes ahead and, So bhakti is not about negation of one's material responsibilities, because for a devotee, nothing is material, everything is spiritual. So this is a very hackneyed understanding of spiritual life, considering that, so this is very material. My studies are material. My job is material. Let me somehow do my job and, quickly come back and put my hand in the bead bag. This will not work. And those who have done this, most of them, they have suffered bitterly. Some of them have become very bitter also in their experience and their expressions. Because that is not the way. Neither it is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna exactly wanted to do the same thing. He said that, Krishna, let me give up my bow and arrow. Let me become beggar. Krishna said, yeah, you go become beggar. But your nature will not leave you. Your psychophysical nature is not going to leave you. You are a beggar and you are asking, Bhiksham Dehi, Bhiksham Dehi. What will happen? The first 100 people you will find Kauravas standing in line. 101st will be Karna and they will mock at you. And when you will be heavily insulted, your Kshatriya nature will come out and you will just bring out the sword and will fight with them. Instead of fighting there as a beggar, fight now, when you have the legitimate opportunity. And by performing your duty, I have bigger plans through you, right? What is the plan? Paramapureta, 64 crore warriors in one shot went back home, back to Godhead. This was the plan. Why? Because it is simply because Arjuna agreed to follow the plan, and the plan is just perform your prescribed duty very well. Don't consider fighting is material. And for Arjuna, that duty is a horrendous duty. The price that he paid was terrific price that he paid. What the price Pandavas paid, right? The price paid by the Pandavas was all death of all the Upa-Pandavas, death of Abhimanyu, Brahmastra and Parikshit. This was the price that they paid. Look at Draupadi. She lost her father, Drupad, brother, Drishtadyumna, in a brutal war. When he was sleeping, he was butchered like a goat is being butchered, right? Virat. So they paid heavy price so that they can act in their position, which is suitable to their psychophysical nature, so that Krishna can fulfill his own plan of sending the 64 crore warriors back home, back to Godhead. So one should not consider, so it is very important not to consider, one's duties as material duties. I know a mother, of course, this is like, all my examples are from some 10,000 lives before and something like don't extrapolate to find out, and they are very heavily, contexts are heavily changed. Okay, so I'm not talking about anybody or anything or within anybody's experience. But I know a mother who thinks that because of the child, I cannot go for a morning program. And literally she treats the child as an enemy of her devotional service. And what will happen? The nature also will respond accordingly. The child will exactly get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and will be awake from 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock. And 9 o'clock, the child will sleep. And that's very normal for any natural child, right? When we were children, we were awake like this only. But now the projection, she will see, oh, this child is coming in the way of my morning program. And we have seen such bad parenting by devotees to their children, by this hackneyed understanding of, being always in the temple hall, or that doesn't mean we have to go to temple hall, but we have to perform devotional service. So there is a delicate balance between the material responsibilities and the spiritual responsibilities. And devotee, Vaishnava, is known for balance. Hey Krishna Bhakta, say Bada Chatur. He is known, if one thing Vaishnava is known for, he is known for balance. Right? So thank you for such a wonderful question. We could discuss and go way beyond our time. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you for very kindly explaining so nicely. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.